2:47 a.m. Sirens screamed, shattering the silence of the Tikhorets command center. A single hostile object appeared on radar, a low-flying, high-speed Ukrainian drone. Russian crews scrambled into position. The commander's voice cut through the tension, cold as steel. Fire. A $1.5 million S-400 missile launched into the night, ripping across the sky. Seconds later, the drone shattered into a rain of metal and circuitry, crashing into the Kuban region. Inside the bunker, the tension melted away. Mission accomplished, the zone was secure. But that sense of triumph rested on a deadly illusion. This heightened alert had begun 3 weeks earlier, after Trump-brokered peace talks collapsed. When diplomacy failed, Putin chose projection of power. He ordered preparations for a final, decisive strike, a steel storm. Tikhorets became the heart of the operation, a colossal arsenal housing over 2,000 tons of Iskander missiles and 19,000 drones, all primed and waiting. So when the Russians celebrated the drone shoot-down, they didn't realize that the earth-shaking roar of the S-400 had just masked the only sound they should have feared. Because in the shadows, a 12-man Ukrainian Special Forces team was moving into position, ready to pull the plug on the entire operation. 2:55 a.m. As the Russians reveled, Team silently slipped back into the marshlands. Their vehicles? Nanocarbon rafts weighing barely 30 pounds, as light as military-grade carbon fiber bicycles, emitting almost no sound or heat signature. Their gear was a fusion of technology and brute force. Each man carried a Javelin missile, a bunker-busting device, and 6 custom FPV drones. But the secret weapon was inside the drones themselves. They didn't use radio signals, too easy to jam or intercept. Instead, they were hardwired to the operator via fiber optic cables stretching up to 5 miles. Each drone had its own private Google Fiber connection, a closed-loop system completely immune to hacking or signal jamming. As the first FPV drone was deployed, its rotors gave off a soft whine in the dense night air. It lifted off, skimming just 1.5 meters above the Kuban River. Then the AI module activated, broadcasting a stream of complex decoy signals. On Russian radar, one drone became an entire swarm. The first wave of the attack, a calculated distraction for the S-400 system, had begun. The only question left, was Russia burning down its own missile stockpile? 3 a.m. The Russian S-400, one of the most sophisticated air defense systems on the planet, stood alert. But like any powerful machine, it was only as intelligent as the data fed into it. And right now, it was being flooded with false information, crafted with near-perfect precision. On the gravestone radar screen, a phantom swarm emerged, appearing like a full-scale invasion fleet. The Russian commander saw dozens of targets approaching and made a decision in seconds. Engage all primary targets. 6 more missiles, each worth $3 million, tore into the night sky. $9 million vaporized in mere seconds. The result? 2 actual drones destroyed. A minor tactical win, but a colossal strategic disaster. Russia's billion-dollar air defense network had fallen victim to a simple environmental glitch: fog. The thick moisture confused the S-400's Doppler filters, blurring the line between real threats and noise reflections. On the ground, the situation was even more chaotic. Patrol vehicles were ordered to intercept, but their high-powered engines proved useless. Thick, greasy mud turned the road into a swamp. The element of surprise was now gone. Russia's entire defense grid had gone to maximum alert. But in the process, Ukraine had just baited them into torching $9 million, all for 2 cheap drones. A perfect chess move. Russia lost a fortune. Ukraine lost 2 pawns. 3:05 a.m. Russian radar screens still glowed red. No one dared to sleep. Team played their trump card. Each operator carried 3 GPS beacons, no larger than a deck of cards. Each beacon was carefully planted in empty spots around the marsh, transforming the quiet terrain into a digital death map. In just minutes, Ukraine had flipped the technological advantage. The fog was no longer a hindrance. It became the perfect camouflage. Inside that murky haze, the Javelin team moved like ghosts. And once again, Russia took the bait. The S-400 system, blind and panicked, locked onto the new signal pings, believing they were genuine threats. Another barrage of missiles screamed into the sky, chasing after the tiny decoys, like dogs chasing laser dots. Another missile, worth millions, launched just to destroy a signal no bigger than a pinhead. But while Russia was distracted, Ukraine fired its first javelin. The target wasn't the weapons depot, it was the command vehicle. The missile arced skyward, then dove sharply, turning the Russian Defense Coordination Hub into a searing block of molten steel. A perfect strike, but it left a trace. In high-tech warfare, every action has feedback data. And with fiber-optic controlled drones, that feedback becomes physical evidence. A 10-man Spetsnaz unit, combing through the scene, discovered a slender fiber-optic cable caught in the mud, barely thicker than a strand of hair. They followed it, the distance to the Ukrainian HEUR team, just a few hundred meters. Suddenly, a flare ignited, bathing the marsh in an eerie gold-green glow. Russia had pinpointed HEUR's location. Spetsnaz was closing in fast, and the mission could collapse within seconds. But the HEUR team reacted with surgical speed, not like soldiers, but like cybersecurity professionals patching a zero-day exploit. They activated a triple-layer defense protocol. First, deploy biosmoke grenades, engineered to absorb heat and disrupt infrared tracking, blinding thermal optics. Second, throw out a decoy fiber line leading into deeper swamp, a perfect honeypot trap. Third, detonate a backup drone rig with a low-yield charge, creating a deafening blast to disorient the enemy. Thick smoke filled the air. Sound ricocheted through the marsh. Spetsnaz, believing they'd traced the real cable, charged straight into a patch of glutinous mud. Within seconds, they were knee-deep and stuck. HEUR had outwitted their pursuers. Now only one thing remained: complete the mission. 3:15 a.m. Spetsnaz, neutralized, trapped in a swamp of their own making. The biosmoke had reduced radar resolution for the S-400 network. This was no longer a tactical window, it was a systemic breach. The order was given. 4 FPVs lifted off simultaneously, long fiber-optic tethers unraveling behind them. The final 3 javelins were hoisted onto shoulders, HEUR's ace in the hole. The attack principle was clear: hardware plus software in perfect sync. The javelins would destroy the munitions depot using tandem warheads capable of piercing 30 inches of reinforced concrete. The FPVs would strike with precision at the gravestone radar antenna array of the S-400 system. The objective: cripple the radar's motherboard so it could never reboot, not a temporary jam, but a permanent kill. The launches were coordinated, clean, and deliberate. 3:16 a.m. 3 javelins launched, their onboard processors calculating a vertical top-down strike trajectory. 4 FPV drones surged forward at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Russian radar systems were blinded. Ground forces were still trapped in mud. The result was devastating. The gravestone antenna arrays were obliterated, their circuitry scorched beyond recovery. The S-400 system was paralyzed, triggering a cascading system-wide failure. That single strike opened a breach, an opportunity for the next phase of the campaign. 3:17 a.m. The first Javelin warhead pierced the main bunker. This wasn't a standard surface detonation. It was a delayed internal explosion, programmed with a 1.1 second fuse, ensuring the blast occurred inside the structure rather than at the outer wall. The bunker instantly became a pressure cooker. Shock waves reverberated against reinforced walls, shredding the internal framework and vaporizing every piece of hardware within. Steel-reinforced concrete pillars disintegrated. The roof collapsed, triggering a domino effect of structural failure. The consequences: 2,000 tons of ammunition ignited. 19,000 drones were incinerated in a towering inferno. The Krasuka, for electronic warfare system, suffered catastrophic damage. 3:18 a.m. Spetsnaz and FSB units flooded the blast zone, attempting to seal off the site and contain the fallout. But was far too late. The depot was reduced to ash, with critical data and infrastructure annihilated. The strike caused deep disruption to Russia's firepower supply chain. Personnel casualties, destroyed hardware, and logistical paralysis followed. Artillery units across multiple front lines faced ammunition shortages, forcing reduced operations or full stand-downs. The result wasn't just material loss, it was short-term combat paralysis. Ukraine's total operational cost was estimated at under $1 million. The outcome: the neutralization of a multi-billion-dollar fortress, the destruction of tens of thousands of drones, and the derailment of an entire high-value offensive. The lesson was crystal clear. Cheap but smart technology, when applied to the enemy's key vulnerabilities, can yield strategic effects vastly disproportionate to cost.